This is Ana Sequera on 508.
Also on today's show, Brendan Malikan.
How are you, sir?
I'm okay. And I'm Michael Benedetti. Today is July the 23rd, 2015. There continues to be a lot of stuff going on in the city of Worcester this summer, but we're not going to talk about it on today's show because we're continuing with our series of talking to city council challengers, people who are not on the city council but who are running this fall. And Ana Sequera, you are running in District 2.
Correct.
And there are 4 people running for that seat, all of them challengers, and there's so many people that there's actually going to be a preliminary election to winnow down the ballot.
September, yes.
Yes. So I want to ask you the first question from our list of questions, which is, why are you running?
I'm running because I love the city of Worcester.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running because I care about the city, and I think that I can bring a lot of good ideas, innovation, creativity, and energy into city council chambers. And I think we need that.
Okay. How have you been active in public life up until now?
Well, I actually was on the CAC, which is it's the Citizens Advisory Council here in the city. So that was my real first experience in City Hall. I actually sat as president of Oak Hill CDC. I also was on the board of WCUW, which is the community radio here in Worcester. I was secretary there for about 3 years. And I'm just active. Right now I'm not president of the board anymore of Oak Hill CDC, but I am the youth coordinator. So I coordinate youth programs there, which I love the youth. And I really care about youth in the city, and that's going to be one of my main coming attractions, if you will.
and what is your day job? My
day job, I work at Ken's Foods. So if you buy the salad dressing, you know who
they
are.
Yeah.
They make Sweet Baby Ray's too. Also, I'm the admin there for the production manager.
Okay, fantastic. What made you want to run this year?
Well, I've been marinating for the last 10 years.
This is all turning into a pitch for Ken's now. It's all going to be like dog whistles for... Yeah.
But I've been marinating with this idea for 10 years. I've been talking about it for a while. I just felt it was time, even though I am going to school right now. My last day at Ken's Foods is August 14th. That's how strongly I feel about the campaign. A lot of people say, "What's your plan B?" I'm like, working at Ken's is my plan B.
Okay.
And I'm just really excited to get to know the voters, the issues that people are worried about, and not assume, but actually get real perspectives.
What have people been, have you been knocking doors and talking to people?
Yes, I have. Some things are personal, some issues are day-to-day things that people are going through. We have a special effects.
Anyway,
some technical difficulties.
We can ignore this. I think the microphone won't pick it up too bad.
All right. So one of the things that I just love is just the people's energy excited about, oh, you're running. That's the first thing I get. The first reaction. It's like, that's great, good luck. They're real excited. I think it's seeing different people than what they're usually used to seeing on council. That's exciting people.
Yeah.
And also just hearing about things like, for example, one of the things that shocked me was, I don't know if some people are aware, but in Alvarado, Colburn, and other 2 streets up, there's a certain area where residents can't park in front of their houses. It's dedicated to UMass parking only.
Okay. So
visitors can't park in front of their house, because if not, they would get ticketed. And I found that really interesting, especially since they've done so much parking. But it might be just an issue that it's never been revisited.
Yeah.
So things like that, personal issues that are affecting people. The school districts, what happened at our school, North High School. All those issues are important to people. Like, I have people door knocking and they'll ask, what is she going to do for the youth? What she's going to do. Like, sometimes when you're running a campaign, people think you have all the answers. And it's not like that. I think that I'll have ideas, but I want to work and collaborate with the community. Not just bring my own ideas, but also work with the community to find out what's best for the community at large.
Sure. So the first policy question we've been asking people is about housing. And the way we're phrasing it is there enough housing in Worcester?
I think there's enough housing because there's still a lot of development going on. We still are growing. I was talking to someone, they were telling me a couple of projects that are up and coming, but a lot of the problems is everything's market rated. So a lot of families can't afford, and not necessarily, when I say affordable housing, I'm not thinking Section 8. I'm not thinking that type of affordable housing, but just the fact, taking into account people who have gone through economic times, difficult times, and right now can't afford, you know, a 2-bedroom. They have to downsize to a 1-bedroom. You know, give the kids the bedroom and the parents sleeping in the living room. You know, that type of thing. So I think the rate of there's a housing crisis, if you will, is on the market value that apartments are getting.
They're just too expensive.
Yeah, it's too expensive.
Do you have any thoughts on what the city council could be doing to help people with housing?
Well, we can set certain rates. I mean, you could have certain, when new developers come in, I know they can ask, and when they come in, you can ask them to have certain amounts to be affordable housing. But like I said, affordable housing tends to be just whatever Section 8.
And you're talking more about inexpensive housing. Maybe would be a better way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. More inexpensive housing. I think it's more about when people come in to develop, making sure those community agreements, you know, having something said there that they would set apart certain housing, considering inflation, considering economic trends, you know what I mean? And not just don't keep going up and up and up and hoping somebody's going to rent your apartment. Know that there's people out there that are having a difficult time.
Are we in District 2 right now?
This is not District 2.
This is not. Describe where District 2 is.
District 2, it's kind of strange because it's really big. It's pretty big. It's part of, if you have Plantation, right? Hamilton, half of Hamilton, because the other half is George Russell's area, district, right? District 3. And then we have parts of Lincoln, which is the part, you know, where Target stores, that strip area, that part of Lincoln.
Okay.
It's kind of a mixed trend. Even some of the Canal District is part of District 2.
And famously Shrewsbury
Street. Definitely can't forget Shrewsbury Street.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of what what's going to be going on with housing in District 2 over the next couple of years?
Well, not right now. I'm not, I'm not, how do you call that, aware of what's going on right now with any new development in District 2 area. You know, more of the downtown, you know, with the courthouse and other areas, but not really in my area right now. I'm not aware right now, to tell you the truth, to be honest. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, the schools have been probably the main thing people have been talking about in Worcester politics this year. You know, violence in the schools, how the schools are managed, all these other questions. And so people want us to ask city council candidates about the schools. And the question we've been asking is, what should the city council's role be regarding the public schools?
Well, they have a role on the subcommittee level, is what I understand. They work with the subcommittee for finance for the school, and they kind of have a partnership. They're trying to develop a partnership where they, you know, when it comes to budgeting, they do work together with council. That's their role in part. But I think also we can add, council members can be an advocate for their school districts, definitely for schools at large, public schools in general, making sure that education the city understands education is key.
Yeah.
You know, that we need to reinvest in our school system.
So much of the job of the city councilors is to be an advocate or be an ombudsman. I feel like we don't talk about that enough in the city. That, you know, like the stuff that you can pass at the city council meetings has some impact on some things.
Yes.
But so much of your time as a city councilor is being an advocate. It's just like helping somebody understand how their housing abatement is supposed to go through or whatever.
Exactly. Or, you know, you have a time frame where you can apply for abatement.
Oh yeah. The abatement process. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's, you know, but that's what I like, because I've already been an advocate wherever I've worked. I've always been an advocate for the people. For example, as my job as an admin, you know, I understand that I don't only help my boss, but I also help the people, my peers.
Yeah.
You know, help get information, how to become a citizen. You know, I had to help someone, how do I get a handicap plate, you know, or placard, you know, and things like that of that nature. We can, you know, in small ways, even though you're not sitting at, you know, a city hall, in council chambers, you can be an advocate for the people around you too.
So the other policy question we've been asking about is jobs, and the way we've been phrasing that question is, where would the jobs come from that would keep more of our high school and college graduates in Worcester, and what's the city council's role in creating those jobs?
I think tourism is a big area that we have to grow in as a city. I have a couple of ideas to bring a little bit more tourism into Worcester.
So no,
you want to hear one?
I like Worcester, but I don't think of Worcester as a tourist city.
I actually have a great idea. I don't know if people are going to think it's corny.
All right.
But can I share it with you?
Please do it. Do it.
You ever heard of geocache?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Do that. And you know why? Because there's so many Worcesters all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like the coolest thing.
I've always thought that what we need to do is, I've said this on the show before, I've always had the idea of taking all of our hills and running a big zip line system down to the common right here, but from the top of all of our hills, that then if you're a Worcester resident, that would be like a free form of public transportation. You could just latch up to the zip line.
And it's clean!
But for
energy!
But for outsiders, who bring people in to give them the most amazing zip line ride ever across the second largest city in New England.
Hey, in Vegas they got roller coaster rides on top of buildings.
Exactly. What do you think besides tourism?
I think that, and I think we have a lot of history.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things going on in Worcester that it's about to flourish.
Okay.
And it's going to help tourism. Canal District's one of them. You know how they want to actually have a small canal.
What do you think about this? I was asking people, what should I ask somebody running in District 2?
Sure.
And the first question was, are you in favor of building this mini canal?
You know, a lot of people, we don't have any water fixtures, like any water. Like we have only one that's over there in that corner, and it's not even being used.
Right. Like the Turtle Boy fountain doesn't even work.
It doesn't even work, you know, but it's a fountain. Just the water's going through it. So I think it would be a great idea. They've done it in Rhode Island. You know how they have the fire festival, whatever it is.
Sure.
Tons of people go from all over to see that. And when I actually went to the mall and actually saw it, I was amazed. I'm like, that's what people come to see? I was amazed of how a small thing can be so impactful.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should knock it. I think we should support it. It would be amazing.
All right.
The tourism thing is the last thing I was expecting a newcomer to actually bring up. But I mean, I don't have numbers in my head right now because it was the last thing I was expecting one to bring up. But tourism is one of the biggest facets of the Massachusetts economy, and we do an excellent job of discounting that and ignoring it.
Are people going to Boston for tourism?
The entire state. I mean, it's you know, it's funny when you start adjusting for population and the size of counties. It's pretty evenly distributed across the Commonwealth in terms of tourism dollars. But there are huge pockets, obviously, out in the Berkshires, both in the arts community, music and whatnot, festivals all summer long. But every city has its own sort of small tourism niche. Worcester hasn't done a great job of capitalizing on that the way the rest of the Commonwealth has.
Yes,
and
as reflected by the fact that you and I are both shocked at the idea.
that anyone even brought it up. No, I mean, it's a perfect example.
Oh, I brought something new! Yay!
But there's something to be said for that, though.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, you can't go to Boston in the spring, summer, or fall without seeing a guy in a tri-corner hat giving a great Revolutionary period tour to outsiders. Like, the interesting thing about Boston's Revolutionary history is that most of it originates in Worcester, right? Like, Isaiah Thomas was doing his work here.
Exactly.
You know, the Declaration of Independence was not being read in front of the old State House like they tell you on that tour. It was being read on the other side of that building 3 weeks earlier. It's like, there is some stuff there that it probably sounds silly to locals that we could get some attention from outsiders by offering services like that and making our history a little bit more well known. I'm on board.
All right.
You guys are on board? That's awesome.
I don't know if I'm on board, but Brendan is.
Too, but I'm
All right.
on board.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because I shared people with that because that's like, hey, I want to make Worcester known internationally. And one of the ways was I thought of geocache, and I've heard about it like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It got real popular. And it's real simple to do. It's not hard to do. And it's just to put Worcester on the map, but on the world map. And that's, you know, I want to be an ambassador for Worcester.
All right, fair enough. So you're answering these questions pretty fast. So I want to ask you a one bonus question, which is just what issues do you think that the candidates should be discussing besides the ones we've already discussed in this election?
I think housing for the elderly. I worry about that because I have my father, you know, he's over 55 and he lives in one of the towers. I won't mention which one. And I just feel that we could do more to help them, especially when they're retired. And I took an actual course for retirement, even though I'm way past. I am not 65 and over to go for Medicare or Plan A, B, D. But I learned so much going to that retirement seminar at my job that I would hope that we're informing our elderly that what's a donut hole. what is that when you're in that type of situation where you spent all the money that was allotted to you?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and not finding out when you need to go buy medication. And I don't know if we're doing enough to help our elderly population with information, with education. Just because people are older doesn't mean they stop learning.
Yeah.
And I worry about that because I'm going to be an elderly person one day, you know, far off into the future. But, you know, I want to take care of those people now, you know, so that way we have a system in place that is not counting on Social Security, but actually is preparing people even beforehand, teaching our kids, education-wise, teaching our kids about retirement. What's a 401k? Why aren't we teaching kids about CDs, about college? You know, I remember my son opened a bank account in 3rd grade. You know, you open a bank account, but they don't teach you, okay, what's your allowance? What can you live with? You know, instead of, we live in a society where we live beyond our means.
Yeah.
And that's worrisome to me. And I think if we educate also the newer generation, you know, the up and coming, you know, to think about retirement, to think about, we won't have those issues where they might not want to apply for Social Security because guess what? They have a retirement plan that's going to take care of them. You know, how nice would that be? You know, instead we're worrying so much. It needs to be, the Social Security system just needs to be revamped. Yes, it does. Something new, something different. But you know, as a city, we can prepare the young generation for the future. You know, and have them prepare for the future, saying, hey, how about there wasn't a Social Security plan? What would you do?
Brendan, you got anything?
You got more questions?
All right. We do have more questions. The next question.
I think you want to know about the bench press.
This is the question. How much can you bench?
Actually, I can bench something you guys can't bench.
What is this?
It was when I had my son, 9 months.
You're playing the pregnancy card. Playing the birth card.
I benched for 9 months, buddy. 24/07.
Fair enough. I want to say to you an idea that we came up with last week, which I'm going to do. Last election cycle, 2 election cycles ago, we had Sarai Rivera on the show, and she didn't know how much she could bench, but she offered to arm wrestle me, and because of the way that show was, we couldn't do it then, but we ended up doing it after she was elected, and I destroyed her, as people who watch the show know.
Oh.
But I'm just offering to any challenger.
Guess what?
Any challenger who wins.
I asked her, and she says, tell him. She told me, could you please tell Mike? I said, hello. And tell him how does he feel because he lost arm wrestling. So I don't know. We're gonna have to have it alive or something.
Well,
it's gonna have to be a tournament or something of champions.
well, all I'm saying is anybody who is a challenger who is elected to the city council, if they want to come on after the election to do a post-election interview and arm wrestle me, that offer is open. We usually don't have elected politicians on the show, just because everybody else talks to elected politicians. But in this one case, we'll do it.
Okay.
And then the other, the final question that we talk about is, just asking people if they've seen The Wire. You say you haven't seen The Wire.
No, I haven't. I might start watching it now, just because you guys asked.
People like The Wire.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start watching it.
And we also talked last week a little bit about Parks and Recreation. You've seen a little bit of that, but you haven't.
I've seen that. I think comedy is so funny, and it's sometimes we take ourselves too serious, and I think that really brings it home.
I still have not seen this. I still have not really watched this show, but it's on my list now.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough shows about municipal government.
Yeah.
Brendan, you got anything else?
I do. Yeah. So I mean, I guess this is kind of relevant to District 2, the city as a whole. But the last couple months, the year's been tough, it seems, for violence in the city. And I always, if you go back and watch old shows, I tend to do my best not to take a cynical view of crime in the city. I think overall, long term, like we're on the good side of like a long-term downward trend in terms of crime in any city, and we should consider ourselves fortunate on that front. This year seems to be one of those years where it's really hard to take kind of like a positive view on crime in the city, especially violent crime. Do you have any thoughts on, blip on the radar sort of thing? Are we just kind of seeing an anomaly that's going to pass by? And either way, like any thoughts long term, like role in the council again, like what should folks be doing in terms of relationship with the police to ensure that it is just an anomaly and not something that
a trend,
a long term sort of problem that we're going to be dealing with. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that I think that is really important is you got to know who your community police officer is in your area.
Yep.
I think that's key. A lot of times people don't understand that with the police department, when they do their areas, where they pick certain areas, they pick those areas. It's a real complicated process, but basically it's by phone calls.
Yep.
You call into the station, they register all the calls. The areas that get the most calls are the ones that get that attention for a certain period of span of time, you know. But I think relationship building is key. You got to be able to trust those people that saying, I want to keep you safe, you know. And we've been through a lot of difficult times where the police department hasn't had a positive. This year has been tough for the police department to really be seen in a positive light at all. But I know the difference in different communities depends on the community police officer in their area. And I think if the police department would train their personnel when it comes to relationships building, that would be really big. Because let me tell you, you would rather call a friend and not just a police officer. But if the police officer is a friend, that's just a double benefit.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Anything else, Brendan?
No. Across the district. I mean, you probably have the most active district in terms of economic.
Yeah.
For years now, I think we've had a focus on economic development that was kind of involving nightlife. I remember we were talking 18-hour cities for years. Your district, a big portion of that component the city has going for it. I mean,
That's actually an example of Worcester tourism, is people coming into town to eat.
well, coming into town to eat, nightlife. I mean, but I mean, you know, the Canal District, that tends to be where most of our live music venues
Yeah.
still are.
Yeah.
Shrewsbury Street, dining and whatnot.
Dining, Highland,
yeah.
even though it's not my area, but
No,
yeah,
but
I recognize it.
any thoughts on how we can enhance that component,
sure.
but
I mean,
also keeping balance on the resident side too? Because Shrewsbury Street tends to be one of the neighborhoods where you get a lot of residential complaints about changes in the neighborhood regarding economic development. Yeah.
Well, I think economic development, and I saw your show, your intro show was really cool, and it really made me, it was food for thought. It really was. And it was like, when you talked about how economic development is very vague, very broad topic, and I started really thinking about, wow, if they asked me that, what would I answer? Yeah, really, seriously, when I was watching the show, I actually thought about it. I'm like, I got a little Zen moment. So I said, you know, you have to attack it three-pronged, I think. It's education, but not only in the education level, or let's say, you know, helping people to develop really good, successful business plans. Teaching people that you don't have to use your own money, you can find investors. People don't realize that there are actually people out there that are looking for new ideas and fresh ideas because they want to make money. And when you bring that education to the forefront in an area, if you call it, whether it be a community center, whether it be the chamber, maybe the chamber could start something like that, where they want to mentor youth. That's what I did. That I kind of did a small mini project with my youth, and I said, okay, I'm going to show you guys what a business plan looks like. We're going to develop one, and then I want you, for the summer, you guys decide what business plan you're going to do. And then I had them share what their dream is. If they had a business, what would it be? Some said a sneaker store, because we got a little sneakerheads in Worcester. Shout out to sneakerheads. We have, one said he wants to be a music producer. So I got them thinking about, what do you need to be able to make this dream come true? You know, and a lot of them said, you know, I need an education. And that's really why I shared that with them, is that you need to be educated. You need to learn from the bottom up, you know, and it was a real exciting time when we were able to talk about that, because I said, you know what, if I'm doing this with 12 to 15-year-olds now, that means, I told them, you guys don't realize what you're learning right now, but I know one day you're gonna have a franchise. And I hope you invite me to dinner, I tell them, you know, and it's just planting seeds, you know, and allowing people to grow. And I think we do that when we educate people. Yes, we can strive to bring new businesses into the, you know, you gotta market yourself. We gotta market ourselves as a city if we want to have economic development, which we want more hotels. We don't use the convention center half as much as we should. That means you need a good marketing team at the convention center. Do we have a good marketing team at the convention center? I mean, tourism is big. But you can't do it alone. It's a team effort. It's a collaboration, and I think the people that are running for council are interested in working as a team, and I'm real excited, and I hope that people vote for me so I can be part of that team.
Well, good luck in the election.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for having
being
me.
On the show.
Nice meeting you. And nice meeting you too.
Brendan, thank you for being on the show, as always.
Thanks for having me back.
And I'm Mike Benedetti, and if you have any complaints about this week's show, you can, as always, email them to pieandcoffee@gmail.com. If you don't have any complaints, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, Worcester.